Hello Internet, and welcome to the Elevate Online Experience. We've got a brand new series, it's called All the Feels. Today is all about managing your anger. So sit back, relax, and if it's your first time, we really hope you enjoy it. Hey, some of you guys, you might have been joining us for a few weeks now. And if you have, head over to our channel, give us a like on all of our videos, subscribe to our channels, and maybe share us with some of your friends if you think they may be interested. Today's wholesome tunes are coming all the way from Los Angeles, from a church called Mosaic Church.
Every morning, 'cause you are faithful in every way, and I will declare that your love lasts forever, and no need to worry, my eyes fixed on you, 'cause you have my heart. All of my life, I will lift your name on high, King of all. 'Cause you are my strength, the beginning and the end, and I will seek you every day, King of all. Say your love makes a river, his bones to live and call his lungs to see once again. I will praise Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble, Jesus, Jesus. You silence fear, Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble, Jesus, Jesus. Oh, Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble, Jesus, Jesus. You silence fear, Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble, Jesus, Jesus. Your name is light that the shadows can't deny. Your name cannot be overcome. Your name is alive, forever lifted high. Your name cannot be overcome. Your name is light that the shadows can't deny. Your name cannot be overcome. Your name is alive, forever lifted high. Your name cannot be overcome. Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble, Jesus, Jesus. You silence fear, Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble, Jesus, Jesus. Jesus, Jesus. Jesus, Jesus.
As I said before, guys, brand new series. It's called All the Feels. It's taken by our very own Mike Pomeroy. So strap in for an awesome message.
Well, hey there, Elevate family. Great to have you with us for this week's online experience. A couple of months ago, I really felt God speak to me to direct us as a church to focus even more intentionally around the topic of influence, that God wants us individually and then together to grow in our influence so that we can share in what Paul himself said, follow me as I follow Jesus. And we can ultimately be used by God in increasing ways in our spheres to point people to Jesus, to the true north. And so we've been teaching on leadership. We taught a series called Lead Like Jesus. We then followed that up with a mini-series called Don't Take the Bait. And that really, was a key defining mini-series for us about not getting stuck in this area of offense. And in the last 2 weeks, we taught another mini-series called Dark Horses, and really wanting to push past the idea that it's only like superstars and spectacular people that God uses, but rather God calls dark horses unlikely people to ultimately accomplish significant things. And I've been incredibly encouraged over these last couple of months with the stories I've been hearing about opportunities that have been opening up for our people in their workplaces, in their communities, in their families, to grow in influence. And yes, there's challenges that come with that, but things are happening. And I'm seeing people grow and being intentional and taking up the invitation to become more effective in leadership and to really sink their teeth into what that looks like and what that means. One of the concepts in leadership that I learned many, many years ago that's been one of the most important concepts is the concept of 360-degree leadership. Now, I don't think it was invented by John Maxwell, but it certainly was popularized by him in more recent times. And so the idea is that for so many of us, when we think about leadership, we maybe primarily or maybe even exclusively think about leadership as something that you or a person does for people under them. You know, people lower on the organizational chart, people younger in the family, that leadership's always top down. And the concept of 360-degree leadership really zooms out on leadership. Yes, it includes leading people that are, under us on some level. It also adds to the picture the opportunity and the notion that we can lead those alongside us, peers, etc., colleagues, that we can also lead and influence those who are above us. We can actually lead upwards. And all of that requires capacity, all of it, growing capacity. All of that requires a growing skill set that you would know which tools to use and when. And I want us to really continue on that journey. One of the overlooked things, maybe most overlooked things, is right in the middle, what's called self-leadership. That in order to be effective in leading down, leading across, and leading up, we also need to be effective at leading ourselves. And in fact, John Maxwell, he goes so far as to say that self-leadership is 50% of the whole leadership picture. That's a bold statement. Let's get into that. Now, look, this is a tea towel. I wonder how many of you in your domestic kitchens hang your tea towels over your oven door handle. I mean, we do. I'm pretty sure that, maybe we should rebrand oven door handles to just calling them tea towel racks. Well, it was a tea towel. Well, not one tea towel. It was not even this tea towel, but tea towels in general that almost derailed my marriage. Look, here's the thing. I prefer it when the tea towels that are hanging over the oven door handle are nicely folded and hanging straight. I prefer it that way. My wife, Louisa, doesn't care for that at all. It's not important to her. And early in our marriage, whenever I saw a tea towel that wasn't hung straight and nicely, I would start hulking out. I would go full Hulk mode on her, on Louisa. It's like, and it would escalate, and it would the sediment would stick around, the residue would stick around for days. All about tea towels, but really it wasn't about tea towels at all. It was actually about my inability to manage anger and manage my response to the anger I felt, and me letting my feelings take over in the moment. I mean, let's face it. When you're angry because you're right, which is not always true. And problems begin when we let our feelings take us somewhere that we ultimately don't want to go. And so this series we're launching today is called All the Feels. And it's about feeling emotions whilst not letting them control us. It's about us experiencing emotions and managing our response to those emotions. The reality is that feelings are powerful, feelings are important, and feelings are actually God-given to us. So the question isn't about whether or not we should experience feelings. The question is about who's in charge, you or your feelings. See, John Maxwell's point about self-leadership being 50% of the whole leadership picture is that if we don't learn to lead ourselves well, including our emotions, we will ultimately forfeit the opportunity to lead others. And that's true in your workplace, that's true in your home, and that's going to be true in your entire sphere. If we don't learn to lead ourselves well, including managing our emotions, particularly those emotions, if left unmanaged, can take us to places we never intended to go. So I invite you to pop open your Bible app or your Bible. Let's head to Numbers chapter 20, and I'm going to read from the New Living Translation, Numbers chapter 20. And really this is a continuation of last week's slice of history, where we taught about bridging the excuse gap, looking at Moses' invitation from God to be God's representative for the people of Israel to first of all challenge Pharaoh to let the Israelites go from captivity in Egypt. And then the invitation from God was that Moses would lead the people out of Egypt and towards and ultimately into the promised land. So this had happened, or at least the first part of this had happened. Moses had finally bridged the excuse gap. He went to Pharaoh. He pleaded God's case to Pharaoh on behalf of the people of Israel. Pharaoh let the people go. Moses led them out of Egypt. Moses was leading them in the wilderness. But they kind of got caught up. They kind of got caught up doing laps and not really making forward progress. And they found themselves in a part of the wilderness, the desert, where they didn't have any water, not for the people or for their livestock. And look, hey, no surprise that when you're walking around the desert and you don't have access to water, you're not going to be very happy. And so the people of Israel were just going berserk at Moses, questioning him, questioning his leadership, like at work, questioning whether God's really has called him to be the leader. And this was just escalating. And, Moses, understandably, wasn't happy. Everyone had their opinion. Everyone knew better than Moses. And so to Moses' credit, at this moment in time, while he was losing the confidence and trust of the people, he went to God for advice. And God gave him instructions to do three things. Number one, God said, go and get the staff of the Lord, the stick that represented God's authority in that place with those people. Number two, gather all of the people up at a particular rock, this particular rock, gather them all at that rock. And number three, when they're gathered at that rock, I want you to speak to the rock. And when you speak to the rock, underline that word speak, when you speak to that rock, water will gush out that will both quench the thirst of the people and their livestock and also be a sign that you are indeed my chosen leader for the people to lead them into the promised land. Question time over, unequivocally, you're it, and everyone will know. So that's it. Grab the staff, grab the people, take them to the rock, and speak to the rock. So Moses did as he was told. He took the staff from the place where it was kept before the Lord. Then he and Aaron summoned the people to come and gather at the rock. This is where things became unhinged. Listen, you rebels. Now remember, he was meant to be speaking to the rock. Listen, you rebels, he shouted, must we bring you water from this rock? Then Moses raised his hand and struck the rock. He was meant to speak to, struck the rock twice with the staff, and water gushed out. And so the entire community and their livestock drank their fill. Which sounds great, but let me tell you what's going on here. Moses is losing his stuff. And he's not losing his stuff behind closed doors, which may be, an appropriate place to kind of vent. He's not losing his stuff among a close circle of trusted confidants who, would kind of be like, yeah, okay, Moses, just let it all out and then we can move forward. No, he was losing his stuff in front of the entire nation of Israel, the people that God had called him to lead. And look, it's easy to fast forward to the end of this little slice and say, well, they got their water, didn't they? We might say, well, the end justifies the means. the problem is, this became a very unfortunate, pivotal moment in Moses' life. See, because the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, because you did not trust me enough to demonstrate my holiness to the people of Israel, you will not lead them into the land I am giving them. See, Moses didn't just lose his temper, he lost his credibility. See, when he lost his temper, when he lost his ability to manage his anger, he ultimately forfeited the opportunity to lead the people. And this is the big idea. It's about us managing our emotions and not having our emotions manage us and taking us to places that we don't want to go, that aren't God's best for us. So I'm talking specifically this week about anger. Next week, we're going to talk about managing worry. But before we get to next week, let me just drop a few myths and offer up a few tools that I hope will be helpful for you when it comes to managing anger. The first myth is this. It's a myth that anger is automatic, especially in traffic. See, sometimes we buy into this myth that something happens to us and we have no choice but to get angry and to respond in anger. You know the person I'm talking about in traffic, you know, the one that only does the speed limit in the outside lane, when we all know that it's not the speed limit that you're meant to do in the outside lane, that's merely a minimum. It's merging traffic. You know, merging traffic's meant to operate like a zipper. One, then the other, then the other, then the other, and then all of a sudden, out of the side of your vision, you see two cars merge in front of you, and you think your only choice is to get angry. Road rage people. Not true. You know, people think, well, I'm just an emotional person. And look, we're all emotional people. But actually, my experience is when someone says to me, I'm just an emotional person, what they're saying is that I currently in my life have little or no control over my emotions. I feel them and then they take charge. And this doesn't have to be the way. It's not God's best. It's not going to lead you to a place that you or God want to go to. And it's ultimately going to cause you to forfeit the opportunity to lead and influence people. Paul wrote to the church in Ephesus and kind of underscored this point. You know, he didn't say anger was a sin. He said this. He wrote, don't sin by letting anger control you. So that's the big idea. It's not about not feeling anger. It's about what happens next. Who takes charge? And where are they going to lead you? So here's just a few tools. And these are tools that I have had to learn when it comes to tea towel hanging, when it comes to other things that trigger something in me that evokes anger internally. First of all, ask yourself the question on a scale of 1 to 10. Does this really matter? I mean, do tea towels really need to be straight, or would I prefer to have more harmony in my home and my marriage? And if I want the tea towels to be straight, well, every time I walk past, I'll just give them a little tweak. 1 to 10. Pick your battles, people. Number 2, it's very simple. Take a breath. When you feel the trigger, push pause momentarily. Count to 10. And if that's not enough, literally, take a walk. You know, say to the person, your spouse, your child, your colleague, your boss, say, listen, I'm feeling anger towards that right now, the thing you did, the thing you said, the thing that's happening. I'm feeling that right now. And I don't want to respond in a way that's going to escalate things. So if with your permission, I'm just going to step away. And I promise I'll circle back, but I'll circle back when I'm in charge of this emotion and this emotion isn't in charge with me. These are some tools. Another myth is that anger is always bad. That when we think of anger or just associate anger, we associate it with something bad. Fills us with guilt, fills us with shame. And if you grew up in a household where there was a lot of anger, it's understandable, that you think of anger because you've seen it used in an abusive way, and you only think it's bad. But again, it's a God-given emotion. And actually, when it's used in a healthy way, anger can be an enormous catalyst for change. I mean, think of it even on a personal level. When you get angry, if you're experiencing poor health, and you're getting angry about that, the phrase is you get sick and tired of being sick and tired. Well, then use your anger to go to war against your poor health and make drastic changes, the sort of changes that are going to turn your health around. When it comes to your finances, if you're done with debt, if you're like, we cannot continue to live beyond our means, we cannot continue to pile up debt, then use your anger to declare war on debt and pay it down, and don't let it rear its ugly head again. In your marriage, that you get to the point, you're so angry that you keep fighting with your spouse that you say, no, I'm going to make this different. I'm going to change it up. Instead of fighting with my spouse, I need to learn how to fight for my spouse, and let anger fuel the change. See, just like there's a good response to anger, you managing it, and a bad response to anger, it managing you, there's also good anger and bad anger. Here's some things that make me angry, and I'm glad they do. Child abuse. When I hear about it, read about it, see something on the TV about it, it makes me angry. Racism makes me angry. Human trafficking and modern day slavery make me angry. More slaves on the planet today than at any point in human history. Poverty makes me angry. And all of these things should make me angry. In fact, the problem would be if they didn't make me angry. And maybe you share some of the same anger towards some of the same sorts of things. And we, as Elevate Church, we take that anger and we're doing something about it. With our Elevate Global initiative, we've partnered with two organizations, Compassion Australia and Opportunity International Australia, and we give to and through them to turn poverty into power. And that's fueled by our good, positive anger to seeing people's lives turned around that couldn't otherwise fully do that for themselves. And here's the third and final myth I want to hit on today, that anger is a management strategy. Some people believe that. And I'm not just talking about bosses. I'm talking about people who are in the habit of using anger as a tool to manipulate someone else towards their own objectives. That they're kind of like a golfer with just one club in their bag, and the only club that they have is anger, and they use that. And the problem is it doesn't work well as a management strategy. Customers do this. If you're in retail, you know what I'm talking about. If you've stood by the cashier's desk in some retail situations when the person in front of you is lighting up at them, you know what I'm talking about. You may have even committed this crime when you phoned up customer support and you've got angry at the person who's there to actually help you. And you wonder why they kind of aren't willing to go the extra mile for you. Because anger is not a management strategy. Not in parenting, not in spouses, because it bleeds into manipulation. Now, I could have said the myth is that, maybe more accurately, the myth is that anger is a myth, remember. Anger is an effective long-term management strategy, because it isn't. And yes, you may experience some short-term wins, some short-term responses. June, you might do what you've screamed at him or her to do. Your wife or your husband might do what you've yelled at them to do. But it erodes trust. It will ultimately cause you to forfeit the opportunity to influence them. And that's the problem. Love and trust are always more powerful, long-term influencing strategies than fear and anger. So look, this has been just a flyover. I'm thrilled to have been able to share some of this with you because this has been a core part of my journey over the last 20 plus years that I've had to really grow in to become somebody who still feels anger, not as much as I used to, and I score things 1 to 10 and I pick my battles, but even then, having learned and continuing to learn how to manage anger, I'm happy to share this, and I hope it's been helpful to you. Next week, as I said, we're going to continue our new series, All the Feels, and look at managing worry. And I know that's going to be helpful as well. So I'd love to invite you to join us again next week and definitely bring somebody who can be helped by that as well. Love you guys. See you then.
Hey, if you're at home and you listened to Mark's awesome message and it stirred something up inside you, maybe you're dealing with something at home or in your life, head over to our Elevate Church AU app. Hit the next step button and go to our prayer request section. Send us a prayer request. It's all confidential and we'll send some love your way. If helping us reach and build into people all over the world is something you might be interested in, the ways to give can be found just below. Anyway, guys, go on, have a great week from the team at Elevate Church.